Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, Chris D Redefined. Turning back to our subject of being an estranged parent and how to handle that. As you might have seen from previous episodes, my son, my only child, who I am estranged from, just turned 21 couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now? Yeah, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I had a friend ask, how are you keeping track of him? How do you know how he's doing? And how do you keep track when you're estranged? Well, that's a really personal question for a lot of people. My circumstances, of course, very unique. And so I'm probably not in the same circumstances as everybody else, but I'll tell you my story. So when I left Hawaii, I moved here 2 years and 3 months ago to Portugal. When I left, it was 2 months before the horrible, tragic fire that occurred on Maui, where I lived for 20 years, in the town of Lahaina, and wiped out the whole town. There were over 100 deaths, and many people were missing for weeks, and into months. But I was terrified for my son, and so my son had moved to Oahu. I knew that because he told me he was going to move on his 18th birthday, which he did, and he moved in with some friends on a different island. But I hadn't heard from him for a year, I think, and when that fire occurred, and I didn't know, maybe he moved back to Maui, maybe he moved to Lahaina. And so I was terrified. I didn't know if my son was involved in that fire. So what I did from Portugal, I hired a PI, a private investigator, to look for my son. And so that's what I did, because I was in a circumstance where I didn't know if my son had died in that fire, and I needed to know. I'm his mom. I had to find out. And so after a couple of weeks, the private investigator that I hired found my son's phone numbers that were registered to him, and that he has an address on Oahu registered to him, that he was attending a community college there in Honolulu, and that he was working at a restaurant. So he found all of this out, and he asked me if I wanted to, if I wanted it to do, if he, wanted to do further investigations, if I wanted him to pursue it further. And at that time I did not, but I at least had all the contact information for my son and kind of knew what was going on with him. So months after that, and I still continued to send emails every month. I think I sent an email to him, never responded. And then I had a buddy of mine went over to Oahu, flew over. He had business on Oahu from Maui, flew over, and I told him where my son worked at night as a server. And he went to that restaurant. He didn't catch the correct night, though, and so my son was not working. But he asked the female server, did that person know Kai? And she said, oh yeah, that's the funny tall boy who's always making jokes. He's super smart. And my friend asked, why isn't he here tonight? And she said, oh, he doesn't work on this night, but he goes to school during the day, and then he works here at nights. It just happens to be that he's off tonight. So I was able to keep track of him that way. The private investigator also found his LinkedIn page. And I already knew that he had an Instagram page, which was private, but I knew he had an Instagram page. So what I would do is, I didn't want him to know that I had hired a private investigator to find all this stuff out about him. I'm his mom, so I was scared for him. So I took that step to find out how he was doing. You could take that step if you want. I didn't move on any of the contact information that I thought that would drive my son further away from me. If he knew that I knew his phone number and where he lived, I didn't want to take that step. because, again, like I said, I was afraid it would drive him further away. Maybe he would change his phone number. Maybe he would be further mad at me and I'd never hear from him again in any sort of way. And he'd make it harder for me to get in touch with him. So I decided not to move on that contact information that I learned through the private investigator. You might make a different choice. I can't make that decision for you. My decision is very personal, and it's a personal decision to do such. So that's what I did. I found his Instagram page. I found his LinkedIn page. And so I'm tracking him that way. I'm kind of watching for any changes. I think he has like 2 posts on his Instagram page. He's not a big social media kid. He never was. He was never really big into social media. Maybe he's changed, but to my knowledge, he's still kind of not in that world unless he created a new Instagram page. I don't know. And then, that's how I'm tracking him. I also, follow the restaurant's Instagram page. I found a YouTube, some sort of food critic had a YouTube page and went to that restaurant, and my son was actually a server in that episode of that food critic. And so I got to see him. It was during COVID and his face was covered up, but of course, your own child. So I heard him speak and I was like, that's him. And so you can do that. You can search YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I don't know, what else is out there? TikTok, and all Threads, all the Blue Sky now, and you could search for your child in that way if you really want to track them. Again, it is up to you whether you want to let your child know that you're tracking them. They could then block you, and then then you won't have any access to them at all. So that's why I decided to not move on any of the information. I just preferred to know where he was and to follow him through LinkedIn. And it does say that he's like attending community college, and that he, on his LinkedIn page, and tells you what his major is and where he works. So I was, and I have a different friend who's going over to Oahu in the next week, and she promises she'll stop into the restaurant and see if my son is there. Now, he knows her, so if she sees him, he'll know her right away. And it's a very, very popular restaurant on Oahu, and so anybody could wander in there. So it would be, not surprising for him, my son, to see her there. So she says she's going to go and check it out and see if she can see him. He has emailed me, if you've watched previous episodes, he has emailed me about, 13 weeks ago, 12, 13 weeks ago, he emailed me back. Because of course my concern for ICE activity, I was really scared for him, so I was sending him all these ways to prevent being captured by ICE, being kidnapped by ICE, and being human trafficked by ICE. And so I sent him a plan of, contact the ACLU in your area. Here is the civil rights attorney in Honolulu that has good reviews. Keep these numbers in your pocket. Go to the Churla or ACLU website. They have a Know Your Rights card. Print that out so that you know your rights, and you can, recite that to an ICE person. I won't even call them an agent or officer. They have no training. But, an ICE person that is kidnapping you, you can at least repeat that over and over again, and then you'll have your numbers to call immediately. Again, whether you contact your child, I had circumstances where I needed to know where my son was, and both of them are life-threatening. The fire in Lahaina that destroyed Lahaina, and then, this ICE kidnappings all over the country. Those are 2 really good reasons to contact and track your child. So, but whether you get in touch with your child or not, you have to make that decision, whether it will be beneficial to your relationship or whether it could harm your relationship. Again, one thing to keep in mind when you get any parent's going to want to know where their child is, I think. I believe that that a parent's going to want to know where their child is and how they're doing. Now, whether you're getting that information to then contact them to get some sort of response from them, that's again a personal decision, but it seems like you're getting that information in order. You got to think, like, are you getting that information to reach out to your child to pressure them to contact you? Again, that's serving you. That's not helping them, right? So you have to think about your intentions. And is it something that, again, is going to either foster and strengthen a relationship between you, or is it going to cause more barriers? So I think that certainly your intent is always something to consider. And again, my circumstances were really different. So these days, I still email my child once a week now, because he did respond and he said, yeah, sending pictures every Friday would be fine. It would be fun to look at the pictures. I mean, so I just send the pictures every Friday along with some advice, like every mom: be careful, keep your lawyer's, your a paper copy of your passport in your wallet, your lawyer's phone number in your wallet, be careful, all that stuff. That's a mom would say, right? And I send him pictures. Now, whether he responds or not, that's on him, but I try. Your child may be very young and not have social media. That tracking how they're doing and finding out how they are might be more difficult. If you're friends with a parent whose child is friends with your child at school, that might be a way to just, if you once in a while ask them, I don't know if you've seen my son at your house, maybe they had a play date, how's he doing? How are my daughters doing, just to find out if they're safe and doing well. Then again, that parent of that child, might feel uncomfortable, but just asking if your child looks well, that I don't think that should cause an issue, but you never know. Then again, telling your life story to that parent and then asking them to take sides on something, certainly I wouldn't think that that's appropriate, but that's a personal decision. So that's it. Should you follow your child and find out how they're doing as a parent? Every parent wants to do this. Whether you use that information about how they're doing to further contact them and possibly damage the relationship between you, again, personal decision that you have to make. So that's definitely an issue that came up for me, and it might come up for you. So think about your intentions before you reach out to your child if you're trying to track them and find out how they're doing. Thank you for joining me this week at Chris D Redefined. Please hit subscribe. And my next video, I'm not sure. I'll probably do a short on the culture of living in Portugal, or I might actually make it more of a political slant. Obviously, I might go that route. So we'll see. Thanks so much for tuning in to Christy Redefined, and hit the subscribe button. Thanks.